I am a survivor of the 76 and 77 drought. There's a few of us out here. Our ranch, I didn't survive it back in 24, but we also had a drought and we had some ranch families represented here that were survived the 24 drought. I think it's unique that we did survive the droughts, and our country keeps changing, and we have to keep versatile and up to date on what's happening. The way we survived in the 24 drought is completely different than what we did in the 70 drought, and today you can see it's getting more complicated all the time. Going back to the 76, 77 drought, yes, we survived. We worked extensively getting our counties designated a drought county, and we worked with our Farm Service Center back then to get money to purchase forage. So the theme here was whether you have to sell or feed. We chose to feed because back then we didn't have these programs for deferment of income. If we'd have paid capital gains and sold our cattle, which we looked at as an alternative, we were scared that we wouldn't be able to get back into the business and get our genetic base back. The reason I bring up 1924 is because we as a ranch, we did sell out. We sold all of our cattle and we went to sheep just to try to survive. The difficulties that we had getting our genetic base back, not to say that our genetic base was so much superior to other ranches' genetic base, but it was superior for our ranch. And to get that back, it took a long time, and we knew that we would never get that back if we chose to sell in the 76, 77 drought. The thing that was unique about the 76, 77, it was 2 years rather than 1 year. In the 1924 drought, we had pretty good years on both sides. Yeah, we sold, we tried to get back. 76, 77 drought was back to back. How does that compare to today? Well, guess what? We are in a drought. We're in a wreck. We're in a major wreck. Our drought monitoring map doesn't indicate that, which I have a real problem with the drought monitoring map. We were in a drought in year 2012, 2013, and now we're looking at 2014. That's a completely different animal than what we had in the 76, 77 drought. Yeah, we had 2 years. 77 was a lot worse than what 76 was. 76, we used all, Rob Vanderleef will get kind of a chuckle out of this. We had what they call equity. We used that up in 76. So what are we going to do in 77? We're going to have to sell them. Well, no, we'll take advantage of this program that they have, which we have available, which on January 14th was available to 27 counties in California. Now it's available to more, but then we're eligible to have these low interest loans. So we said, okay, 77, we'll sign up for one of those loans. Well, the easy part was getting turned down by 3 banks. That came pretty simple. But then when we started trying to qualify for it, they said, you guys are so broke, you'll never be able to pay it back. So you don't qualify. Oh boy. So we were on the edge of not qualifying for the low interest financing that was going to be available to us. So then we were faced back with the choice of selling out again, selling our cattle. So back to Sacramento I went. And I kept working with them, and pretty soon we got the loan. Well, that's a short-term fix for a long-term loss, maybe. Now we got to worry about paying that back. Back then it was low interest. We got it for 10.5%. Boy, doesn't that look good today? So if you read the fine print on the loans that are available today, I believe they're about 3.5%. Boy, that's really cheap, isn't it? Well, I even talked to Rob about this, but I think that most farm credits are about that without their refund. So now we qualify for a loan with higher interest rate than we're already paying. So I'm not sure that we want to go there. What I'm saying is that we have to work, and we have to work together with CCA. We need help. You know, it's like the NAP program. I signed up for NAP 2013, 2014, 2012. I haven't been paid for 2012 yet. Go to the CCA convention, they're sitting there complaining about not getting paid for 2013. I said, whoa, I haven't even been paid for 2012. Yet when I make out my budget, whenever I make out my budget every year, I have to put down what I'm going to pay for that insurance with maybe no guarantee that I'm going to get it. I buy the insurance with the assumption that if I'm in a drought, I'm going to get something. But then what happens if we take it all 3 NAP payments in 1 year? Then we're subject to income tax again. The drought monitoring map, as of January 1 this year, we were only in D2. We're in D3 now. Have we seen a big change? We were in D2 back when we were, you know, our weather forecasts and our weather people are saying we're setting all-time records for drought. If we didn't qualify for D4 back in December, and as of January 1, there's something wrong with our protocol of our drought monitoring map. To me, it's simple. Yeah, they might have a real complicated, real intensive protocol for it, but hey guys, it's not working. It's not working. We are in the D4, we've been in the D4. I really enjoyed the speeches today, and all the work that the Cooperative Extension Service does. I give them a compliment, because then Glenn, like he says, I'm going to cut them off. I would like to give them a little English lesson. You know, we're past supplementing, boys. We're in a drought. You need to include replacement when you're talking about feed, because we're not supplementing anymore. We're in a full feedlot situation. If you're trying to supplement your way through this thing, yeah, it's a real easy answer. It's not going to work. You know, and when you're comparing your different feeds, that's fine. But you've got to think about replacement, not supplement. Because those cows have got to have a certain amount of forage. And one thing about it, if you put a fence around them, they always eat more. Open it up for questions.
Well done. It's some questions for Wally. Wally, I'm going to have to ask these right here.
I don't know if this question is really for you, Wally, or if anybody is looking at overall what hay availability, because a lot of us are stuck feeding anyway, and obviously more people are going to be feeding. What that crop is looking like, noticing the rainfall pattern in Oregon is also a lot less than usual. What are we really looking at reality when we get into July, August, September this next year? Any idea?
Can you repeat the question, please? Well, I need to hear it so I can repeat it.
I'm wondering if anybody is looking at overall hay availability as we get farther into the season with no rain coming out of the states of Nevada, Oregon, Washington, all those producers up there, because we're all going to be relying on them. I'm wondering if anybody has looked at that and what we need to anticipate.
I think that's a real good question. Trying to repeat it, your question is on the availability of hay that we're going to have, even if it has to come out of state. You know, we don't even have to go out of state. You know, all we have to do is drive around our own state. I see a whole bunch more walnut trees going in, a whole lot less alfalfa going in. You know, right here, anything coming into the state's going to have transportation, and don't think that we don't look at that. because we are even looking at backhauls to go both ways. I'm dealing with commodities all the time because, again, I'm not supplementing, I'm replacing. And I should have backed up a little bit. We're not only in Butte and Tehama County, but we're also in the high country, you know, which is Lassen and Plumas. And as far as summer growth that you're talking about and the availability, from what I hear up there, yeah, we might have a quarter of an inch of snow, but we got dust underneath it. You know, so it's not looking good. And I appreciate, you know, the example that we had up here, you know, as far as Lassen County, you know, because it's definitely a little different than what the valley is here. We're a lot drier climate up there. Dan?
Wally, just out of curiosity, why did your family go to sheep in the 20s?
Well, to repeat the question, why did we go to sheep? Because we didn't have any drinking water. For an example, we hired a man with a Douglas pump, and that's all he did was pump water all day. And with the livestock back then, there was such pressure with the neighbors on you know, for the availability of water. You know, it just doesn't work with cattle. I remember one time I was down in San Luis County, and a guy walked up to me and said, "Man, I got a grain crop that didn't make. You can have it. The only thing you got to do is haul water." You know, I went and priced a water truck, and I got to looking at it. I couldn't use it. He was going to give me the feed, but I couldn't afford to haul water. So to answer your question, Dan, it was availability, you know, of the drinking water for the livestock, you know, in the 24. You know, it was just like this, except it never did rain. Yeah. But it was only on a 1 year deal. 76 and 77 was the same thing, except there was a lot less neighbors. And that leads into the next little segment now. Even the ones that were there in 76 and 77, they're not here now. You know, so there's getting to be fewer of us here. And I think as an industry, we need to group together, or we're not going to have a livestock industry like we know it. Not the family farm, the cattlemen that we've had in California in the past. They're going to be gone. You know, we have very few of us left. You know, I didn't want to embarrass them, but there are a few families here that did make it through the 20s. Any other questions? Oh, Larry.
I enjoyed your discussion. What did the Forest Service think in the 70's drought? How did they manage public land grazing in the Plumas and Lassen?
They wanted to get rid of us. Oh, excuse me. The question was, how did the Forest Service treat us in the 70s, you know, during that drought? And, you know, that was just before the cattle free, you know, in 83 or whatever. But they didn't want us there. But we did work with them. And we tried to work our way through it. Does that answer your question,
Well,
Larry?
sure. Then what do you expect? What do you expect?
What's that?
What do
I
you expect
this year?
for this season?
Well, you know, I don't really go on what they, you know, yeah, they regulate us, but I like to be a little bit more proactive. You know, that's the reason I'm working on these livestock trucks right now. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to turn out. You know, I won't turn out for a supplemental, you know, or for a replacement situation. If we're in maintenance or maintenance minus up there, we won't go to the mountains. You know, we'll just take a non-use. They do have a clause in the federal code there that you can take 3 years of, you know, for a resource deal on federal ground, and that's what we're considering.
Thank you.
I have a two-part question. One is, I remember the drought in 76 and 77 because I was in high school at the time, but what was the weather like in the rest of the country during that drought, and what happened to cattle prices as people got rid of their cattle? And did they go somewhere, or did they get slaughtered?
I really didn't want to give an economic lesson, but you know, now that you asked the question, and I'll repeat it, I'll give you a little more. The question is, what was the weather like in the rest of the country, and correlate that back with the livestock prices, which is right on target. Back then, we didn't have the drought that we had previous in the United States, in Texas, and the big cattle counties and states. And our prices in the 70s, they were depressed. There's no question about it. They were depressed. And they didn't recover. You know, we're talking 76, 77 drought. They recovered a little in the late 78s, but from 78 until April of 79, it went through the roof. You know, probably one of the biggest increases we saw in the price. A little unique, fast forward to today. We had the big drought in Texas. They sold off. A lot of our cattle are going east right now. A lot of our cattle are going to the Wheaties. You know, a lot of them are going out of here right now. The reason that we're getting a good price, and everybody says, what are you complaining about the price? I said, well, you know, when I went to college, I took an econ class called Econ 101. You know, and they introduced me to a term called CPI, which is Consumer Price Index. Well, they've manipulated that Consumer Price Index so much that it's hard to get a grip on. You know, my Irish heritage goes back to the square bottle of whiskey. But, you know, also use price of gas. When I went to college, you know, I had to sell butcher cows to go to college. I sold butcher cows for $350 a head, and I was buying gas to get there for 35 cents. Just do the math. Where would our butcher cows be today? So don't tell me that we're getting a good price in comparison with the rest of the economy. But back to answer your question, yeah, the only thing that's saving us at all from having a super depressed market is our cattle. You know, we go to Shasta, any of these auction yards, a lot of those cattle are going east, filling that D-void right now. If that gets filled or something and it stays a drought, we don't know.
So we are selling our cattle to people that have already sold out previously, and they're restocking with our.
To repeat the question, some of the price that we're seeing is for the restocking, yes, but I'll put a caveat in there. We also last week saw $1.50 fat cattle, which we've never seen that before. But then that goes back to my consumer price index deal.
Wally,
Thank you, Glenn. I thought you were going to leave me alone.
I can't help but paw at you. Can you give us a common denominator to those that didn't make it out of the 70s drought? What was the common thing they did that was fatal for them?
Well, the question is, what was the common thing that was fatal for the livestock producers that didn't make it out of the 70s? There were different ones. Some of them sold their cattle. Some of them tried to feed. Some of them that tried to feed got the same loans that I got. Downside of that loan is, what happens when you got to pay, and the prices go up, and you got to pay income tax to pay that principal back? They own the IRS and they own the SBA.